Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Katie Wilson refuses to investigate fraud in Seattle, and J.D. Vance announces the DOJ is coming after fraudsters. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
Yesterday, we had a lot of questions, a lot of questions about all the alleged, not the alleged incidents, what am I saying? About what happened in Minnesota. We had a lot of questions about what happened in Minnesota. Did the driver try to run over the ICE agent? Did the ICE agent feel his life was in danger? At the end of the day, legal proof, what it comes down to, is whether or not the ICE agent felt his life was threatened. Depending on what you saw in which angle of which video you saw, you can say, yes, he felt his life was in danger. However, we were missing a bunch of context yesterday, and we brought these questions up on the show. So let's go through them. First of all, this ICE agent, it turns out years and years ago, is the same exact ICE agent who was dragged by somebody trying to run him down. Here's CBS with the story at the time.
ICE arrest in the Twin Cities is leading to even more charges.
This home security video shows the driver taking off during a traffic stop, dragging a deportation officer with him. New at 10, WCCO's Uba Ali walks us through this video and the political firestorm behind it.
What began as a planned federal immigration arrest took a violent turn in this quiet Bloomington neighborhood. And it was all caught on camera. According to a federal complaint, agents were executing a warrant for 39-year-old Roberto Carlos Munoz. They say Munoz entered the country unlawfully, and he also pled guilty to fourth-degree criminal sexual conduct back in 2023 for abusing a minor. Tuesday morning, agents pulled him over. Court documents say he repeatedly refused to comply before a federal agent took out his spring-loaded window punch with his right hand and broke the driver's side rear window. These images show the officer's hand in the vehicle. In this video, you can see the driver take off with the agent hanging from the car, dragging him 300 feet through front yards. These graphic images show the aftermath. A bloody agent who needed 33 stitches for his significant cuts. And now a political battle with a top Homeland Security official criticizing Governor Tim Walz, posting on X, instead of comparing ICE law enforcement to the Gestapo, Walz should be thanking our brave law enforcement. The Department of Justice says a request for Munoz to be held after that 2022 arrest was, quote, not honored by local authorities, and Munoz was released.
So, now that we know that information, an ICE agent who's put in that situation again is going to assume his life is in danger and somebody's coming for him. Now let's go to the activists. What were the questions I had yesterday? From the video itself, it picks up in the middle of the incident. You come in the middle of this and you don't know what happened before. You don't know what happened after. Well, now more videos are coming out, which is shedding more light on this tragedy. Apparently, the woman you hear screaming in the video yesterday, and you've probably seen the video by now, you hear a woman screaming, "Oh, what did you do? What did you do?" Apparently, that's the wife of the woman who's driving the car. My question was, why did the activists know to be at this intersection? What is going on here that drew the activists? It turns out this woman and her wife are professional activists and went down there to make trouble. It turns out that what this woman was doing was trying to impede ICE vehicles before the shooting even took place. The New York Post has a video which didn't work real well for air because there's too much stuff in the background. You can't really hear what she's saying, where you hear the wife going, "It's all my fault. It's all my fault. It's all my fault," because they came down there to be activists. Now, put all this together for a second. At the very, very minimum, this woman was interfering with federal agents conducting raids on illegal aliens. At the very minimum. Does that mean she deserved to die? No. But she put herself in this situation voluntarily. And as I keep saying, if you don't run from the cops, you don't have a problem. If you don't interfere with ICE, you don't have a problem. This was not a peaceful protest. This was a how can I interfere with federal agents who are going after illegal aliens. If they hadn't done that, we're not even discussing about any of this. And the crazy thing is, I think they wanted a confrontation. I think they wanted this to happen. I don't think the woman wanted to die. But the left wanted something like this as a rallying cry. How quickly they've jumped on all this. Tim Walz yesterday saying that he was going to mobilize the National Guard to take on ICE. It's almost like they wanted all this to happen. And when Tim Walz gets called out for it, what does he say today? Here's what he said.
I've not used inflammatory terms of what happened.
Really? You haven't? Hang on a second. You said you were going to go to war with the federal government. You also said this.
And from here on, I have a very simple message. We do not need any further help from the federal government. To Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, you've done enough. There's nothing more important than Minnesotan safety. I've issued a warning order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard. We have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary. I remind you, a warning order is a heads up for folks. And these National Guard troops are our National Guard troops. They're teachers in your community. They're business owners. They're construction professionals. They are Minnesotans. Minnesota will not allow our community to be used as a prop in a national political fight. We will not take the bait. We will continue to update you, Minnesota, as we get more information.
You are literally using your own National Guard as a prop. Hey, Tim, last time I checked, you didn't deploy with the National Guard when they went places, but now you're calling them up? Yeah, just a little side point there. Governor Bob Ferguson decided to weigh in on all this. Quote, now ICE is killing moms in the street. The escalating violence from the Trump administration against immigrants and protesters is absolutely outrageous. The state of Minnesota must be allowed to pursue all avenues to seek justice. Okay, you want to play that game? Let's play that game. So how about the family of Trooper Christopher Gadd? Should his family be allowed to pursue all avenues to seek justice because they lead back to you? Trooper Christopher Gadd was killed by an illegal alien who never would have been in this country if not for your and Jay Inslee's sanctuary policies. So, let's use the same standard. Let's be consistent. That means his family should be able to seek justice for your bad policies. Escalating violence, what I saw all day today is video after video after video of people throwing themselves in front of ICE vehicles to try and protest it. And then you have these people called legal observers. By the way, did the talking points go out to the left today? I saw everybody was talking about legal observers today. Every single Democrat was posting about legal observers. Do you know what a legal observer is? They have no status whatsoever. It is a made-up nonsense. You might have seen them at protests here in Seattle. They wear neon vests and carry clipboards and cell phones. And what they do is they document anything they think they can sue you for. Anything they think a protester was harassed or impeded or Jonathan Cho got too close to them. They are made up. There's no status of a legal observer. They wear the neon vest so you think there's some kind of status. It is made up. This woman's wife was there to try and get ICE doing something wrong on video. She had protesters with her. This woman was sent in or chose to go in on her own volition to cause problems. And meanwhile, Tim Walz, who says he didn't say anything inflammatory, then says this.
I want Minnesotans to hear this from me. the desire to get out and protest and to speak up to this administration of how wrong this is, that is a patriotic duty at this point in time.
So now you're encouraging the lunatics. You know what I saw yesterday? And the timing, the irony of the timing is amazing to me. Yesterday, I saw people were trying to build barricades around the incident scene. They were trying to build barricades to create their own autonomous zone. Here we go again. It's the summer of 2020 all over again. Do you know there's a George Floyd triangle, circle, memorial, corner area that has still been like this since 2020 in Minnesota? All the businesses are gone. The whole area is graffitied and looks like the old autonomous zone if it had been left alone for 5 years. They want to do it again with this area. They were looking for a martyr. They were looking for a cause, and now they have one. And meanwhile, this whole thing, I don't want to say her death was pre-planned, but they planned to interfere with ICE. None of this would have happened if not for that. And they are choosing to riot, burn American flags, protest everything. Hey, when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, did you see a whole bunch of people rioting out in the streets? Did you see a whole bunch of people burning American flags? Because I didn't see that at all, but that's what the left wants. They want to dial up the rhetoric. They want to make this worse. What I'm seeing here is an avoidable tragedy. None of this had to happen. Shall we follow the chain of events here? This woman didn't have to go in there to be videoed to cause a problem. She didn't have to come from wherever she came from. In addition to that, you guys in Minnesota and Minneapolis could have just enforced the law. But instead, you allowed illegal alien murderers, criminals, fraudsters, convicts, you name it, to take control of your state. You allowed rampant fraud everywhere, and you get mad when the federal government says, you guys aren't doing your job, we're coming in to do your job for you. And also, here's something else. There's another talking point on the left today. When ICE says it's sending in more agents, and ICE says it's hiring more agents, and it wants to rapid deploy these agents, the left is saying, well, how much training have they had? Where are they coming from? Well, you know you have a real problem right now because not that many people want to be police officers anymore. Under Trump, you have more people who want to be in federal law enforcement, but notice in Seattle, in Minnesota, in Chicago, in New York, you have police officers fleeing the industry or transferring laterally to other departments. So the people who are going to take these jobs are not necessarily the best candidates because the left has made it so a lot of people don't even want to do these jobs because who wants to be a punching bag? Who wants to see their life dissected on national television if people think they made a mistake? Why would somebody want to go and work in this profession? So you may not get the best ones you want to get. And all this traces back to the summer of 2020 when the left was demonizing law enforcement, and it's back again with a vengeance. You have a communist mayor in New York who's anti-police. You have a communist mayor in Seattle who's anti-police. You have a mayor in Chicago who's anti-police. Need I go down the list more? This was all avoidable. Every single part of this was avoidable. Every single thing. But it's almost like the Democrats want this to get worse. Listen to what else Tim Walz said today.
Our history, when things looked really bleak, it was Minnesota's first that held that line for the nation on that July 3rd, 1863. And I think now we may be in that moment that the nation's looking to us to hold the line on democracy.
Whoa. Are we now doubling down on the whole idea of going to war with the federal government? Is that what we're really talking about here? That's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like they want a war with the federal government. It sounds like that's what they want. I wonder why they want to do this. What's their play here? And in the end, it comes down to politics. Here's CNN going over polling numbers from yesterday.
How are voters feeling about Democrats right now?
Yeah, I mean, Democrats, in the minds of the American public,
are lower than the Dead Sea. What are we talking about here? Well, let's take a look. The net approval rating for Democrats in Congress, you said it, Kate Baldwin, the lowest ever. Look at this. Overall, they are 55 points underwater. Their approval rating is south of 20%. It's even worse when you look at independents. Look at this. Negative 61 points. That means that their approval rating is 61 points lower than their disapproval rating. Quinnipiac has been polling this question for the better part of the 21st century. They have never found Democrats, at least those in Congress, in worse shape than they are right now.
And they want an issue, and they think this is the issue. They think the riots of 2020 and George Floyd got them the election against Donald Trump and got Joe Biden elected. So they think here they can ride this all the way to the midterms. It's really sick. It's really, really sick. And a lot of people in the media are helping them out, like our own Seattle Times. What was the headline on the story yesterday from the Seattle Times? ICE agent shoots and kills woman during Minneapolis immigration crackdown. That makes it sound like ICE went into a house firing and blew some random woman away. I came in a blasting, right? That's what it sounds like right there. Doesn't say what actually happened. The shooting marks a dramatic escalation in the latest series of immigration enforcement operations in a major American city under the Trump administration. Wow. Talk about burying the lead of something that happened. All of this could be avoided. But I wonder if the Democrats wanted it to happen. It sounds like they wanted George Floyd to happen. Sounds like they want all these tragedies to happen. Never let a good crisis go to waste. Wouldn't going to war with the federal government qualify as an insurrection? Jay in Tacoma says over on the text line, yeah, kind of does. Didn't we just have the January 6th anniversary 2 days ago where they were saying, oh, no, Donald Trump and his deadly insurrection, all the Democrats walking down those stairs with candles. Give me a break. They don't care about this woman, the Democrats. They care about using her. They care about using her. And for the Democrats who are saying, like Bob Ferguson, oh, she was a mother. You know, I don't put myself in danger because I'm a father. I used to go out in the field more. I used to be in the middle of those protests more, but when I saw how violent these guys were getting, I don't go as often because I have 3 kids I need to take care of, so I don't go in the middle of this stuff. What'd you do? You gave your life for a cause? No. It was a wasted life. Your kids needed you. And instead, you want to play games with federal agents. That's what you wanted to do. This was all avoidable. And the Democrats are using it to their full political advantage. And it's truly, truly, truly despicable. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from our friend Daniel from the Navy. Daniel, what's going on, man?
Hey, Ari. So just something I wanted to comment on and see if you had any insights or maybe perhaps do some more investigation to this. But I saw a couple of things today on social media of breakdowns of the video of the woman who got shot after driving into the ICE agent. And they were going to, like, frame by frame, that this woman intentionally had her wheel turned towards the agent, hit him, and then after he pulled out his gun and after he shot, then the wheel turned to the right, then the wheel turned away from him. So I'm wondering, in the posts I also talked about this, if this was a purposeful hit, a kind of hit and run, to try to antagonize the ICE agents. Maybe they didn't think it would be to a lethal capacity, and, you know, also life is always horrible. But I wonder, like, are these people going out there trying to create incidents, not thinking like, hey, if I hit someone with my car, they're just going to, you know, do nothing because they're law enforcement?
Yeah, so I didn't see what you saw. I haven't seen this wheel business, and I know a lot of people are talking about the wheel business. From the videos that I saw a car diagonal across the street impeding ICE, and then I saw a woman try and get away from ICE when ICE is ordering her to stop. And for me, that's enough. I don't think she should have been killed, but at the same time, those ICE agents want to go home. And we can talk about which direction the wheel was going. We could talk about whether or not the wheel got traction. We can look around on the ground and realize it's Minnesota in the middle of the winter and it gets icy. We can discuss all that. We can Zapruder film this thing for the rest of time. But at the end of the day, she didn't have to even be there. She went there to try and cause trouble. Her wife went there to try and record the trouble. So whatever direction the wheel was going, she chose to she chose to try and drive away from federal officers while they were ordering her to stop, while they were in the middle of a raid against illegal aliens. And we don't even know who those illegal aliens were. What if they were murderers? What if they were drug dealers? And she was impeding that. That's all we know for sure right now. Daniel, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. Got time for one more call before the break. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Dwayne in Federal Way. Dwayne, what's up, man?
Hi, Ari. Good to talk with you again. My question was, and I thought about this yesterday after listening to Minnesota's governor wanting to just kind of basically leave us alone. What would happen, or could this happen, to withdraw just all federal money from going into Minnesota?
I'm sorry, say that again?
What would happen, or could this happen, and how would they fare if we just withdrew all federal money from going into Minnesota?
Well, that's exactly what it seems like is happening now, because the feds already said we're cutting off your daycare money until we can solve this fraud issue. They've already said we might be going after your money for voting because there's voting inconsistencies. And I think this is a play by the Democrats where they think if they can turn public opinion against the feds, they'll actually leave Minnesota and they can get back to their fraudulent ways. Now, do I think they should pull the money? Yes, but you run into a legal issue, which is if Congress allocated the money, you need a law to repeal the money. Trump can freeze it, but he can't cut it. And this is the same thing with DOGE. And this circles back to Democrats and Republicans in Congress. It's that Republicans, I know they've got like a 1-seat majority right now, but when they had a 4-seat or 5-seat majority, they weren't doing the DOGE rescissions. What's going on in Congress where they're not cutting the things they could be cutting? I think the Supreme Court is eventually going to decide this case, but I think what the Supreme Court is going to rule is that when Congress votes on something, it's a law. And I'm not sure President Trump can cut all the money that people think he can. Appreciate the call, Dwayne. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, we had our own protest here in Seattle last night. And Katie Wilson says she's not going to investigate the fraud. We'll tell you why when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. So for those of you who may not have been listeners 5-6 years ago, because we weren't on air 5-6 years ago, you may have missed this, the giant autonomous zone that was in Seattle in 2020. What happened was, after the death of George Floyd in Minnesota, Seattle lunatics decided they were going to take over 6 blocks of Seattle. They were going to riot against the police department every single night. The woke mayor, Jenny Durkin, at the time said, "Have the building, take the building," and ordered the police to evacuate the building, and the police chief, Carmen Best, went along with it. When they evacuated the area, what happened? Crime went through the roof. People got shot. People got killed. And now it seems like we're about to do this again. So tell me if any of this sounds familiar now that you have the background. So a person is killed in Minnesota, and then they riot in Minnesota, and now they want to riot in Seattle. Well, last night, as we were going off air, we got the news that a whole bunch of the wackadoodles were planning on protesting in front of the federal building. And I made a joke at the time. I bet you they have no idea what they're actually protesting. They just want to protest. Our friend Jonathan Cho from Frontlines, from Turning Point USA, was out there to cover it. And as soon as I saw this video, I just started laughing, because it was exactly what we were talking about.
All right, so again, we're at an anti-ICE protest in Seattle, right in front of the federal building, and of course, these far-left activists are flying a Palestine flag. This has nothing to do with Palestine, but of course, it's the same crowd, same group of activists, just a different cause, going after the latest shiny object. And today it's standing in solidarity with comrades in Minneapolis. They are out here in downtown Seattle in full force. So far, a lot of speeches, chanting, yelling. And now ICE out of whatever city they want ICE out of. And they're calling everyone fascists. We're going to kind of keep a distance across the street here. This is where some others are recording from a distance to not get too close to the crazy.
So they're waving, and Jonathan Cho said exactly right. They're waving a giant Palestinian flag. You don't understand. This isn't like a little flag. This isn't like the kind of flag you put on your house. This is a massive flag. So let me paint a picture for you. You've got the activists holding up a banner that says, "Abolish ICE." Behind them, there's about 200 or so protesters. And there's a few signs here and there, a few makeshift signs about ICE, and a giant Palestinian flag. I'm confused. What are you guys actually protesting at this thing? Now, mind you, even according to Jonathan Cho, he sounded like these lunatics remained peaceful, even though there were some Antifa types who were harassing him. But there was something else that was interesting. Jonathan Cho saw some elderly white people who were leaving the crowd of the protesters. And these protesters said they left because the other protesters were too extreme for them, and they weren't even sure what they were protesting. So they're losing their own support because people who came to protest with them, who legitimately don't like ICE or don't like Trump or don't like what happened in Minnesota, said these lunatics are too much for them. Do you think this is going to be the winter of love? Do you think this is something that's just going to carry on for a while? I'd love to know what you think. Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, J.D. Vance announces that we're going to be cracking down on fraud using the Department of Justice. Plus, we'll take some of your calls and more of your texts. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder to download the KVI app and subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. While you're there, remember to rate and share so that way your friends can get in on the fun as well. Saw a great text over here from the 818. Ari, the agent had seconds to react in real time. He didn't have the benefit of reviewing a video in slow motion before he fired. That is 100% correct. You see a 3-ton vehicle coming at you, you react in real time. If he thought his life was in jeopardy, which is why I assume he pulled his weapon, then he's going to open fire. And it seems to be that's exactly what happened. This one from Dave. While Ari is describing the Seattle protest, I keep thinking of that song, Riot, Let's Start a Riot. We were literally discussing that earlier today, Dave. Pretty funny. This one here, Becky from Enumclaw says it's always older white people protesting. Yeah, they got the young Turks back, though, this time. From the 360, why was she parked sideways in the middle of the street to begin with? Why was her wife outside the car videoing while this was going on? She was there to cause trouble. Exactly right. That's what I've been saying the whole time. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio Line. Take a call from Aaron in Seattle. Aaron, what's going on?
Hey, Ari, I have a thing or like maybe a trend I've been seeing lately, and I hope it's true, or at least maybe it's something you might be seeing. But not just these protests or any of the No Kings protests, or just over the past maybe year or two, and not just here, like in other places, the crowds have been skewing, kind of to the point of one of the texters a minute ago, older. Like there's a geriatric element going on. And that's almost like encouraging to me because there's a pacifying element there, where they're just too old to be riding anymore, So I think, I don't know if this 2020, any of the same stuff we saw in 2020 is going to happen because there's just so many older, old fogies out there,
I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong. I think it's a lot of them who reach retirement age and are now saying, hey, I want to relive the glory days of the 60s or whatever it is. Yeah. But, I mean, as much as we want to make fun of them, and as right as you are, Aaron, and you are right, don't forget, after one of the No Kings protests is when a bunch of Antifa wackadoodles assaulted Cam Higbee. Don't forget, we're still seeing that stuff happen. Now, mind you, there's less of the Antifa stuff because of federal enforcement. In Portland, when the feds came in and started arresting people who were getting violent, and people are getting prosecuted and people are going to jail, like the former Spokane mayor or city council member, whoever he was, that happened, and some people in L.A. had happened, and more people in Spokane had happened. They're worried about that. So what are they doing? They're being better behaved than usual. Because what happens is you saw those lunatics in the giant frog costumes down in Portland. And that's because they were trying to put off the message, oh, we're friendly. Oh, we're peaceful. There's no reason Trump should be doing what he's doing. But there were Antifa activists inside those costumes because they know very well what they're doing. So as much as I think you're right that these things are skewing older, it's because a lot of the Antifa types are actually taking a backseat because they're worried about federal prosecution. In fact, a lot of them have fled the country. But if given the opening, if, I don't know, Gavin Newsom becomes president or anybody else on the far left, they'll be back in 2 seconds. This stuff will come back, which is why they're a little bit more emboldened here in Seattle again. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I mean, the more time they spend suiting up in frog suits, the more, again, adds to the pacifying element, which, hopefully that has a kind of decelerating aspect to it for at least another 3 years, and then hopefully we'll continue on that path.
Exactly. I also think people don't have the appetite for this they used to. I think they're just tired of it, whether they're left, right, or center. I think they're tired of being stuck in traffic, and I think they're tired of the insanity. And don't forget, Aaron, a lot of these protesters are paid. We did a story a couple days ago where Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, Mackenzie Scott, she's actually been funneling millions of dollars into these activist organizations, and we know that a lot of them are getting paid, and we know that there's a lot of funding behind them. It doesn't seem like Seattle got that funding because in other cities, they all had the same flyers ready to go. They all had the same banners ready to go. This is organized, and they're very good at that stuff behind the scenes. Aaron, appreciate the call. Appreciate the perspective. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206 421-5757. This one from the 253. Hey, Ari, can we hold a job fair in front of the federal building so these protesters can get jobs? Oh, that's funny. I think that would be really, really funny. But I think a lot of them already have jobs pouring coffee. I think that's what a lot of them already have jobs doing. I don't think they want the jobs. They're getting paid to protest. Why would they want to go do this? Very good. Very, very good. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Antonia in South Hill. Antonia, what's going on?
Hey, Ari, thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to share with you an experience I had at the Seattle airport a few weeks ago. I went into one of the Hudson stores and I made a purchase. And so I got my receipt. It was being manned by only Muslim women. And when you went to pay for your purchase, they did not offer any customer service. They just directed you to the machine where you could do your credit card. And when I got home after my trip, I was reconciling my credit card, and I noticed that they had charged me for a donation to a foundation called Journey for Good Foundation. And nobody asked if I wanted to donate. Nobody told me it was going to be happening. It was just when I was reconciling my credit card. It was only like 58 cents, but they have several
So,
locations.
Antonia, I think what happened here, I'm going to give benefit of the doubt to the minimum wage worker who's there for a second, okay? And what I think happened was probably Hudson News is having one of those things, do you want to donate? Do you want to round up to donate? And probably somebody accidentally hit the yes because you're talking about a minimum wage worker who's working at an airport, Hudson News. I don't think there's anything nefarious here. I think it's something, unless, look, if a whole bunch of people call the show who are hearing this right now or email me, and you're welcome to, ari@kvi.com, and say this is happening with more regularity. And in fact, Antonia, just for you, I will check this out. Do me a favor, email me, ari@kvi.com, the name of that organization. I'll check them out. Okay. But my guess is holiday season, probably one of those round up to donate to charity kind of things. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Aaron in Poulsbo. Aaron, what's up, man?
Hey, man. The Summer of Love, it was a little bit after my time down there, but I went to visit. And, like, at Pike's Place Park, everyone was down there, like, bragging that you could – sorry, that's my autistic kid sneezing.
Okay.
But everyone was down there bragging that they give you $50 a night to stay like in a tent up there in the park, like in the CHOP area.
So in the CHOP area, let's dive into the CHOP area for a second. It basically devolved into a glorified drug addict homeless encampment by the end. And by the time that the police came to break the thing up, all the hardcore activists had left because they were already bought off by the city because Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkin had allegedly negotiated, well, we're going to give you guys this kind of funding with the stuff we defunded the police, and we're going to give you guys this kind of funding. So they were all gone. By the time they came in, and I was there that day. Sorry. By the time they came in, all the real hardcore activists were gone. It was really just the homeless people left. They were just tearing down the barricades.
Yeah, no, the homeless people, they started paying them early to come in at 9 when they would go home, like, and treat it like a 9 to 5.
Well,
and they
even
were paying all the local drug dealers for security.
I'm not saying they weren't, but what I saw at the time was when I was there, day one versus the end of times. Yeah. On the first day, they were basically bribing the homeless people just with food, sandwiches, and we'll give you a tent. They didn't even necessarily have to pay some of them, but that's something worth looking into. Aaron, I'll do some digging. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, J.D. Vance is calling in the Department of Justice to investigate the fraud in Minnesota, and he says it's not going to stop there. Could Washington already be on their radar? We'll give you all the details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Do you remember when Attorney General Nick Brown said there's been a lot of allegations in Minnesota, but they've all been debunked? In case you don't remember that, this is what he told Chris Daniels from Como News.
Obviously, people are sharing things on social media, but has anybody sent you documented complaints of fraud?
Well, I'm not sure if anybody has, because we get a lot of intake, so my team hasn't briefed me on that. But we're seeing a lot of allegations. I mean, even what we saw in Minnesota was a lot of allegations, much of which has been debunked already in like the 48 hours. You know, if there are allegations here, that's something that law enforcement and the regulatory agencies need to take very seriously. But what I don't trust is some random YouTuber showing up at somebody's house saying there's fraud here, because most often they don't have all the information. They haven't done their own fact-checking or fact-finding. But that's something that we need to take very seriously.
Well, they haven't been debunked. In fact, we're finding out more and more how widespread it is and how true they were. This is from CBS, not my little black book of the right-wing media conspiracy. In fact, I'm going to read it in their language just so you know that even with Barry Weiss at the helm, how not right-wing they are. A Minneapolis daycare featured in a right-wing YouTuber's video about alleged fraud in Minnesota is now closed, according to state records. Quality Leering Center, they wrote Learning Center. They identify as the Quality Leering Center, okay, guys? Closed on Tuesday, according to the Minnesota Department of Human Services licensing records. The Minnesota Department of Children, Youth, and Families said the center requested closure of its license effective immediately. The agency reported the provider is unable to reopen without reapplying for a license. The center's last licensing review in June found several operational violations. All right, Nick Brown, wrong again. So Nick Brown's not going to investigate the fraud. So who do we have who will investigate the fraud? Well, lucky for us, we got the federal government. I can't believe, as a conservative, I am begging for the federal government's help. Here's what J.D. Vance announced earlier today.
If you're a young parent struggling to afford childcare in the United States of America, there are programs that we have to make it easier for your kids to get in daycare, for your kids to get in preschool. Those programs should go to American citizens, not be defrauded by Somali immigrants and others. Make it hard for you to get the access to the resources you need. But number two, making it easier for people who shouldn't even be in this country to fleece the United States and our taxpayers to begin with. We have actually activated a major interagency task force to make it possible to get to the heart of this fraud. We have Department of Agriculture resources that are focused on SNAP fraud so that people who need food benefits can get them, but illegal aliens and other fraudsters don't. We have over 1,500 subpoenas that the Department of Justice has issued to get to the heart of the fraud ring. We've done almost 100 indictments, mostly Somali immigrants, but also a few others. And, of course, we're looking in with broad investigatory authority to a number of the instances of wrongdoing that we've seen in Minneapolis. But we also want to expand this. We know that the fraud isn't just happening in Minneapolis. It's also happening in states like Ohio. It's happening in states like California. And so what we're doing in order to help coordinate this remarkable interagency effort from the Trump administration, but also to make sure that we prosecute the bad guys and do it as swiftly and efficiently as possible, is we are creating a new Assistant Attorney General position who will have nationwide jurisdiction over the issue of fraud. Now, of course, that person's efforts will start and focus primarily in Minnesota, but it is going to be a nationwide effort because, unfortunately, the American people have been defrauded in a very nationwide way.
So basically what he means is, you know how Harmeet Dillon is in charge of all the civil rights cases, and she has her own department, and she's prosecuting against the school districts that are violating civil rights and the colleges, et cetera, et cetera. They're talking about somebody similar inside the Department of Justice who's specifically going to go after fraud. Now, you may say, Ari, what about Doge, right? Why isn't Doge doing what it's doing? Well, they folded Doge into other departments, and I think the Doge was in over their heads. As entertaining as it was to find mines that are filled with documents going back to the 1950s, and that's why paperwork is so slow, and as much as we find out that we're spending money on Sesame Street in Iraq, we got a state-by-state problem here. And you may say, Ari, that's a state issue. Yeah, it's not when you're getting federal money. You know how much federal money is going to states like Washington and states like Minnesota? Why do you think the left is fighting so hard for every single one of those dimes? Because they know the clock is ticking and they're going to be found out soon. So am I excited for this? Yeah, but a cautionary tale because we got to call balls and strikes on this show. Let's say that position still exists. We know what Barack Obama did when he was in office. IRS came after anybody who was a conservative group, anybody who was an Israel group, anybody they disagreed with. That's what the Obama administration did. So who's to say that the same thing won't happen under a Gavin Newsom or an AOC or who knows who else they're going to come up with to run for president? As excited as I am about this, cases take years, and I'm a little worried what your worst enemy might do with this instead. When we come back, speaking of enemies of this country, Katie Wilson did her first long-form interview with Como News, and it was a doozy, my friends. We'll have the insane audio for you when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, illegal aliens busted driving trucks carrying drugs. How long until the terrorists decide to put something else inside those trucks? But before we get to any of that, my friends, socialist Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson did her first long-form interview with Chris Daniels over on Como News. One clip in particular from it is going viral, and that is the clip where he asked her if she is going to deal with the allegations of fraud. So they get into a whole discussion, and of course she starts by demonizing independent journalists who are going and trying to expose the fraud, and then it gets a little bit more contentious.
What have you done in those regards?
Yeah, so we're working on that. So we have conversations going on with the departments. And yeah, it's just, I don't think it needs to be explained why it's problematic to have random people showing up to daycares. I think the fear in the Somali community is real. The fear in immigrant communities are real. So we're taking that very seriously.
Along those lines, have you asked anyone to follow up on the fraud claims, either to the Department of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs or SPD?
No.
So there's, as far as you're concerned right now, there's no reason to suggest there's any sort of fraud?
This whole issue is not really about fraud, right? It's about dividing and conquering. It's about making an immigrant community a target, right? There's no reason to assume, based on the identity of a daycare operator, that their small business is doing anything wrong.
Now, when she said no, I have seldom seen such a callous, conceited, arrogant look on somebody's face as I saw on hers. She was so supremely confident in, no, we're not investigating fraud. Even Nick Brown gave it a little bit of lip service. A little bit. Well, I don't know about fraud, but if there's fraud, maybe just send it to my office. I haven't checked my office. My office didn't tell me anything.
Oh, man, we've had a lot of intake. I was off last week. So much intake. So what does that even mean, by the way, so much intake?
I don't know what the hell he's talking about. But, yeah. So you have never seen something so callous. In fact, if you follow me on social media, Ari Hoffman Official on Facebook and Instagram, the Hofffather over on Twitter, I posted the clip. You can see how callous she is. No, we're not going to investigate. No. In fact, that green patch on the side of her face, which looks like the lizard person starting to come out, bad lighting. Whoever's doing the makeup and wardrobe for her, she looked like a wax figure. She looked like she came right out of Madame Tussauds. We're trying to help you here, lady. We're trying to make you look a little bit more like a person. But you come out sounding like lizard person. And it was just mean.
You beat me to it, Ari. I was going to say, you know what else has calluses? Lizards. Oh, no, because she's a lizard person. Why the long face, Katie Wilson?
Oh, exactly right. I mean, the way she dismissed it, and then immediately she launches into, this isn't about fraud, this is about dividing us. Really? Because for me, Mike, I don't know if you've noticed this, I have avoided, in my social media posts where I'm talking about this stuff, I've actually avoided using the word Somali. I just say daycare. And the reason I just say daycare is because I assume they're not the only ones doing it. If a system is ripe for fraud, I want anybody who's committing fraud to be held accountable. Yeah, I mention it when it's related to the question at hand. Yes, this was a Somali who committed a crime. Yes, this was a Jewish person who committed a crime. Yes, this was this kind of person who committed a crime. Whatever the case may be. But for right now, these are allegations. And if the system is this ripe for fraud, why are we assuming it's only the Somali community who's doing it? And she says we're trying to divide everybody? Look, the easiest way out for her and Nick Brown and everybody else is to just say, yeah, you know what? We're going to go investigate these claims and we're not going to find anything, so we can call Ari Hoffman and everybody else raving, crazy lunatics. Why don't you just do that? It's like the voter thing all over again. All you have to do with the voting security is just say there's no there there. But they know there's a there there. How do I know this? I have to give kudos to two media outlets. One of them is our friends over at the Center Square. The Center Square has been investigating all this insanity, and they've been doing a really good job doing it. The other one is Como News. Como News ran a report last night that the state auditor has found millions of dollars in overpayments by the agency which is responsible for daycare oversight. Wait a minute. Hang on. I thought there was no fraud, Nick Brown. I thought all this stuff was debunked. Well, now we know why Emily Randall just wanted to ignore the fraud and go after white guys, right?
We can trot out all of the data that we want to create the sense that there is a bad guy. There is a bad group of people. There are folks who are not among us. There are folks who are other. And I think we should spend a lot more time looking at ourselves, looking at American citizens, looking at white men.
Okay, crazy lady. So this is why they didn't want to look at the fraud. As independent journalists and citizen watchdogs continue raising alarms about possible Minnesota-style daycare fraud in Washington, the state auditor's office is now finalizing an audit of $770 million child care subsidies program run by the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, an audit that began before the recent fraud allegations went viral that reportedly shows millions of dollars in overpayments. According to Como News, the audit includes payments to more than 7,400 child care providers statewide, offering the most comprehensive look yet at how subsidy funds have been distributed and tracked. DCYF provided the outlet a link to records showing 1,372 overpayments totaling $2,092,513 between July 1st, 2024 and June 30th, 2025. The report attributes many of those overpayments to missing attendance records, overbilled hours or days. 265 overpayments were tied to a lack of attendance records, and roughly 21% were linked to overbilled hours or days, highlighting recurring weaknesses in documentation and verification. I thought there was no fraud. I thought this isn't worth investigating. I thought we're not going to find anything. And these guys weren't even researching the things we've been investigating, and they already found problems. This is the second report I have found that shows that there was rampant, absolutely rampant, irresponsibility with the funds. And when there's irresponsibility with the funds, you leave yourselves open to fraud. Well, if Katie Wilson doesn't want to do anything, and Nick Brown doesn't want to do anything, and Emily Randall doesn't want to do anything, and Bob Ferguson doesn't want to do anything, thank God. Thank God for Representative Michael Baumgartner, who announced today he sent a formal letter to Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rawlings, urging both of the departments to conduct a program integrity review of federally funded benefits administered in Washington state. Quote, Washington families deserve to know their tax dollars are paying for real meals and real care, not padding the pockets of scammers. He called Minnesota a cautionary tale, warning that fraud risks explode when programs rely on large networks of third-party providers and pay and chase enforcement. Pay and chase enforcement is where you pay something out and then you figure it out later. That's what pay and chase is. In the letter, Baumgartner emphasized he is not alleging misconduct by Washington State, but he is requesting independent validation that safeguards are working. By the way, you do remember we had a massive issue with fraud during COVID when Jay Inslee and Susie Levine took all the restrictions that were supposed to protect against fraud off the system, and Nigerian scammers stole $1 billion. Why do you think we're more responsible now? I'll never forget this. Mike, I don't know if I told you the story before. I think I have. What happened was I was still running my bounce house company at the time. And I remember that there was tons of fraud that was attributed to the agency of unemployment, that they were using whatever companies they could find, and they used mine. So what happened was I was getting letter after letter after letter verifying all these people's employment. And I go, I never heard of any of these people. Who are all these people? And that's one of the ways they detect the fraud was people like me calling. But I remember months after this, when they said they fixed everything, I got another letter in the mail and another one and another one. So I call up the Department of Unemployment. And I said, hey, guys, none of these people ever worked for me. What's going on? And they go, wait, you're getting those letters? And I said, yeah. And they go, oh, no, not again. Did you hear anything in the news? It's like the guy in Spaceballs. Oh, no, not again, as the alien pops out of his stomach. Did you hear anything in the news about that? Did they fix that? How do we know the problem has actually been solved? We don't. All he's doing is asking for an audit of the safeguards, and watch the left lose their absolute minds. What else did Katie Wilson have to say in this interview? Okay, this one needs a little context. Remember last week the report went viral, it was earlier this week. The report went viral about how the Seattle Police Department wasn't going to be enforcing drug crimes anymore, and they were going to be referring people over to the Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program, the LEAD program for treatment. And I said the LEAD program is a failure. Lisa Dugard, who's been running it for years, can never provide the data. In fact, Mike, you're going to love this. I emailed LEAD after the show the other day, and I got a response from Lisa Dugard. And I said, here's all the data I want. And she was very nice and very cordial. And she says, how about I send you the report that I send to, the people we're responsible of responding to? I said, that would be lovely. Does it include all the information that I asked for? And she said, well, there's a whole lot of information here. There I go. I'll take the report. She goes, would you like to talk to me about it? I go, yes. But in the meantime, can you send me all this information? Mike, I think that was Monday night. What day are we on now? Thursday. Where's the report? If I missed it in my spam, fine. But I have had issues with LEAD for years because I believe it's just a revolving door of justice. So Katie Wilson said, I had nothing to do with this. This was all the city attorney. This was all the police chief. I had nothing to do with this. When I want to say something, I'll say something. When I want to announce a policy change, I'll announce a policy change. Then here's what she told Chris Daniels at Como News.
There's a few people that it kind of flew under the radar that you hired in this past week as well. Lisa Dugard is a public safety and homeless advocate.
Whoa! You hired Lisa Dugard. I thought you weren't doing this. I thought this wasn't your plan. And then you hire the person who runs the organization. Okay, if you wanted to know that Katie Wilson is completely full of it, this should tell you how she's completely full of it. Gets worse.
In the past, John Grant from the Low Income Housing Institute is an advisor on homelessness.
So you hired the guy from one of the organizations that part of Homeless Inc. to be an advisor on homelessness. This is going to get so much worse.
Lisa is kind of on a temporary basis, at least from what I read. Allison Holcomb from the ACLU to be in charge of public safety initiatives.
You hired the guys from the ACLU who protest everything the police do and sue over everything the police do to be in charge of public safety. I can believe it, but be more transparent, please.
They all have history working in City Hall.
Bad history.
Or with City Hall on different issues. Why bring them in at this point?
Which basically is a nice way of saying, they all suck. Why are you hiring them? Shouldn't you want a fresh perspective on all of this?
I mean, I think their experience is very valuable, and I think especially when we look at homelessness and public safety, right? These are issues, and I think specifically homelessness and unsheltered homelessness, where progress has really eluded the city for a very long time, right? I remember back in 2015 when we first declared a state of civil emergency on the homelessness crisis, and our unsheltered homelessness crisis has just gotten worse and worse. And public safety, there's some overlapping issues and some other issues, right, where similarly we have longstanding problems. And I think to make progress here is kind of, again, this combination between new approaches, but it really depends on having a deep understanding.
Wait. If you want new approaches, you're hiring all the old people. You're hiring all the people who made the mess. Are you kidding me with this? This is how you think you're going to solve everything? This is how you think you're going to solve homelessness? What else did she have to say?
What's that metric? How many people need to be offered housing here in the first 100 days?
I mean, I think that the real...
What was that laugh there? Oh, we're not going to house anybody. What are you talking about? She doesn't believe in sweeping out homeless encampments. She believes compassion is leaving them on the streets. Her giggle, it's not a tell. It's a, he thinks we're going to sweep homeless encampments. He thinks we're going to get homeless people off the streets. If you want to get homeless people off the streets, you wouldn't have gotten all the people who keep them on the streets to work for your administration.
I mean, on the campaign trail, I talked about creating 4,000 new units of emergency housing and shelter over my 4-year term. And we're going to be working hard at, getting those numbers going, right?
How are you going to do that when no developers want to develop in this city anymore? So when I was in Israel, I was in Jerusalem. And in Jerusalem, from my in-laws' apartment, I was looking out the balcony. And there were 13, 14 construction cranes. And I remember looking out and thinking to myself, I remember when Seattle used to be like this. I remember when you would drive coming over from the University District on the bridge on I-5, and you see the beautiful, beautiful skyline of Seattle, and you would see the construction cranes everywhere, all over the place, especially when Amazon was building. Now we've got a 30% vacancy rate in the office sector. There's no new construction because there's so much available. In fact, coming up at 5:30 today, the brand new Seattle City Council President Joy Hollingsworth is going to be joining us for an in-depth interview. And I'm going to ask her specifically about this. Okay, so Katie Wilson, you had this whole controversy over drugs. Was there anything to it?
You mentioned off the top the media kerfuffle this week, so we can just clear the air. Has your office been pushing for a change in drug use prosecution?
No. Does that clear the air?
So nothing's changing there either.
Wait a second. You hired all the people who you want to change the program to, but you're not changing anything?
Nothing's changing right now, right? I think we're going to be working very closely with City Attorney Evans and with SPD. I think the result that we are all looking for, right, is that when you have a situation where someone is using drugs in public, and especially in the context of a hotspot where you have lots of people using, selling drugs, potentially other illicit activity going on, the situation we want is that we are responding to that in a way that improves that public space, right? That means that that activity is not happening, and that also is giving that person or people the support that they need, right? And because we know that we can't just arrest our way out of the drug crisis.
Okay, so it sounds like you're advocating for no more arrests. It sounds like you may not be doing it right now, but you plan on doing it in the future. That's what it sounds like to me. Are we just going to be a city of drug addicts because you're going to chase all the businesses away? How do you plan on keeping all the businesses like Amazon here when they all announce they want to be out of here?
I think there's been people in the business community or Amazon who would say, hey, socialism doesn't fit with what we're trying to do. Can economic development still happen in Seattle?
Yeah, of course. And, I'll say that when our economy is failing to provide for people's needs, right, that is when the government can step up and do things that you might call socialistic, right?
Whoa. When the government is failing to provide, we're going to impose socialism. That's what she just said. The government can step in with those things you might call socialism. She wants things to get so bad that, yeah, people are begging for socialism. That's the plan. Want me to prove it? She talks about affordability all the time. Taxes are a big driver of how unaffordable this place is.
I know you signaled progressive revenue is on the table and something that you're interested in here in the first year. Is there any concern that would force Amazon to move more jobs to Bellevue? And Bellevue would be the benefit of that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we want Amazon jobs here. We want other companies to locate here. So we're just going to be smart about that conversation, right? I do think that we are going to need to look at new progressive revenue, given the size of Seattle's budget shortfall. Of course, our first thing is to make sure that we're using the existing revenue as effectively, as efficiently as possible. So we're going to be working on that. I think it's very important that residents, businesses, when they're paying taxes into the city government, that they can have faith that we are using that money well. But yes, we are going to be having a conversation about new revenue. And yeah, we're just going to be smart about how we do that and try to make sure that that's ultimately to the benefit of Seattle residents.
So you are going to tax us, and you are going to tax businesses, and you're going to make things less affordable. I mean, kudos to Chris Daniels. He asked all the right questions, and she completely revealed who she is. There's no sugarcoating this anymore. Everything we said she is, she is. She said it herself. Now we got to make fun of Chris Daniels just a little bit, because there's one little question that Chris Daniels loves asking that came right at the end of this.
There has been a story spanning all of these mayors about the Sonics leaving Seattle and whether they'll ever come back. So you're the 7th mayor I'm asking now about this. What are you going to do to bring the Sonics back?
I think we have a really good shot. That's all I'm going to say.
Was the pun intended there?
It actually wasn't, but yeah, I don't regret it.
The same laugh from before when she was lying. I want to play poker with Katie Wilson. And just so you know, I suck at poker. But I can tell when somebody's lying, and it's the same tell. It's the exact same tell, the giggling. She'll just keep him on the hook, so he keeps writing stories about how Katie Wilson might bring the Sonics back. By the way, I'm surprised on Como News today there wasn't one of those, "Are the Sonics coming back?" Yeah, she can't deliver on anything. She wants the city to get as bad as possible. She knows it, too, because then everybody will want her socialist insanity. And anybody who doesn't want it will move. That's what she wants. That's what they mean by a socialist utopia.
I wanted to pick on Chris Daniels. I was going to crack my mic and say, Chris Daniels, you were doing so good. But I think Chris Daniels, the senior reporter himself, is playing 4D chess, and you just explained it to the audience brilliantly, because he's asking that Sonics question as an acid test of how she's going to answer legitimate questions. Yep. And if she's all Laffy McGiggle face over there about the Sonics, how is she going to be about the issues? Go back to the other questions further in the interview, and now you have evidence of how she talks and what her tells are.
Exactly.
Brilliant on Chris Daniels.
I got to say, we make a lot of fun of Chris Daniels on this show, but this was...
And I was just about to.
And I was about to also, but you know what? It was a great interview. And you know what? He asked a question about what he cares about. You know what? That's fine. That's fine, because I would probably ask an anti-Semitism, right? I would ask something like that. I would ask about the protesters or whatever. That's fine. He brilliantly showcased what she's all about. And she stupidly took the bait on everything, because she said the quiet part out loud on literally everything. You want to know who Katie Wilson is? That lizard lady with the green stuff on the side of her face. Yeah, socialism for everybody. When we come back, my friends, lots more to talk about. We will get to your calls. We will get to your texts. Plus also some illegal truckers were carrying drugs. How long until they start carrying bombs from the terrorists that came across the border? You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, if you missed any part of the show, give us a call or text. If you missed any part of the show, make sure you download the KVI app and subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. That way you and your friends never miss a minute of the show. Remember to rate, subscribe, and share so that way people can know how awesome the show is. We go right to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Anna and Graham. Anna, what's going on?
Hey, Ari. So question about the ICE agents. So what happened in Minneapolis was obviously horrible. But I mean, I also understand why the officer did it. My question though is, wouldn't they have body cameras?
Great question. Great
would
question.
Literally help the officer's case and show what happened, because you have all these angles. I at least saw like 4 or 5 different angles online.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, just wondering if they have body cameras, because that should be able to help the officer's case out.
Okay, so let's start with this. Why were there 4 or 5 different camera angles? How'd all the activists know to be there with the cameras? All right, yeah, one or 2 of them is a neighbor, right? But the activists were the best close-up ones were from the activists who were there, and they only released part of the videos. Right away, your data is compromised. But the body camera thing, I filed a disclosure request last night for the body camera footage. I reached out to DHS and ICE asking if they have the body camera footage. I can't imagine I'm the only one who did that. And then I saw a report that there were no body cameras. I haven't verified that report yet, but I did see a report that they weren't wearing the body cameras. If they weren't before, they should be wearing them now. Look, I'm the guy who says we should have cameras in the classrooms. I'm fine with the cops wearing cameras. I really, really am, because a lot of times it will exonerate them. Because think about this. If he was wearing a body camera and you see that car rushing for you, you'll get a full view of it and you'll be like, yeah, that's why he opened fire, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was just my thought process with the whole situation going on. So, yeah, I was curious about that.
Yeah, I'm going to stay on top of this, Anna, but I'm going to do a check and see if I can verify if there were body cameras or not. They usually get back to me. I assume ICE is overloaded right now, but as soon as they get back to me, I'll talk about it on the air and post it on social media, okay?
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for the call, Anna. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. You know how since August we've been covering the story about the illegal alien truckers going up and down our freeways, and somehow they got commercial driver's licenses, and they've killed people. I'm sorry, allegedly killed people, right? In Florida, they had Washington driver's licenses. They had California driver's licenses. Well, now 2 illegal immigrants from India, both issued commercial driver's licenses by the state of California, were arrested in Indiana after authorities discovered more than 300 pounds of cocaine hidden inside the semi-truck they were driving. Now, we said that if cartel members or anybody else got these illegal driver's licenses, these illegal CDLs, what would stop them from interstate drug trafficking? Hey, if they can do it in Super Troopers with marijuana, why can't they do it in real life? Then you don't even need to hide what's in your truck. You just hope you don't get pulled over. And that's exactly what happened. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security announced that ICE lodged arrest detainers on January 4th for Gurpreet Singh and Shasveer Singh following their arrest by local authorities in Putnam County, Indiana, on narcotics trafficking charges. During a routine truck inspection, law enforcement located 309 pounds of cocaine concealed inside the sleeper area of their truck. DHS said that amount represents an enormous threat, noting that with a lethal dose as low as 1.2 grams, the haul was enough to kill more than 113,000 Americans. So now we know they're running drugs in these big rigs. How do we know they're not running bombs too? How do we know they're not running weapons also? Do you remember Operation Fast and Furious? No, I'm not talking about the movie. I'm talking about Obama's boondoggle, where they gave guns to drug dealers and thought by putting GPS trackers in them, everything would be okay, and then one of them was used to kill a U.S. federal agent? Do you remember that insanity? So who's to say that isn't happening right now? We have no idea what's on the roads of this country right now. We have no clue. When we come back, my friends, Representative Chris Corey will be joining us, weigh in on some of the insanity that's coming up in Olympia, because don't forget, that new legislative session starts next week. We'll have all the crazy details for you, what the Democrats are planning when we come back. You'll listen to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Attorney General Nick Brown just took a big loss. For the guy who always brags about suing the Trump administration, looks like he just took a major loss, and I don't see most of the mainstream media covering it at all. Joining us now to discuss on the Warrior Injury Law studio line, Representative Chris Corey. Thanks so much for being with us today, buddy.
No, it's always good to be with you, Ari.
Always a pleasure to have you. So tell us about this unanimous ruling by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit.
Yeah, so huge win. Started out of Yakima. A couple years ago, the legislature and the Supreme Court really changed freedom of association and employment for religious organizations by basically saying that in order for you to have staff under let's say a statement of faith, right, that are very common across most Christian and other, religious organizations, that the pastoral staff working there could be required to follow that statement of faith, but any other employee would not be forced to be under that. And so therefore, you would have to hire people who maybe openly disagreed with your beliefs and, state, that type of thing. And so it was actually challenged locally here out of Yakima. The Yakima Union Gospel Mission, under the direction of then CEO Mike Johnson, basically said this is completely violative of the Constitution and our freedom of religion and association. And so he challenged it, and it was actually upheld on the state level, and then it was appealed by the state up to the Ninth Circuit, where they argued that they tried to make the argument that religious organizations had to hire anyone and everyone, and that they couldn't be subject to that statement of faith. And in a very rarely unanimous decision out of the Ninth Circuit that favors the Constitution, here we are. They said, nope, there is freedom of association. The religious institutions and nonprofits have a right to be able to have their employees under the same statement of faith and beliefs that they would their pastoral staff. So a huge win. And yes, you're right. I have not heard much from the Attorney General's office, and he's very fond of promoting himself and sending out press releases. So I was surprised he didn't do that for this one.
Well, we might have to, share this interview over on the social media and tag him in it, because maybe he doesn't know about the ruling. I mean, after all, he's got so much intake from being offline for so many days about the fraud. Maybe none of his staff has yet informed him about this. Now, let me just do this in absurdum so people realize how insane this could be. I know it doesn't technically apply to pastoral, but basically what it could mean is an imam could apply for a job at a synagogue, and the synagogue would have to hire them if this thing wasn't repealed, kind of deal?
Yeah, basically, you would not be able to require any of your employees to share your faith and values. And if they applied and you said, no, we're not going to hire you for that, you could be subject to either a lawsuit or punitive action from the state. That's crazy. I mean, we got Jewish people, we got non-Jewish people who work for my synagogue, but we're not going to hire the non-Jewish people to be rabbis. Like that's how far something like this could go. I know there's like the exemption for pastoral, but when I did my one pre-law class, it was about tort law in absurdum. That's what they teach you about. So this is a huge, huge victory. Why are you so passionate about this? Because normally I don't get press releases like this from you. I get them from the attorneys who fought the case. Yeah, and they did. They actually, rightly, the Alliance Defending Freedom was actually the attorneys on this case, and they deserve a lot of credit as well. But it was personal for me. So, this is the Yakima Union Gospel Mission. Again, the CEO and actually, also a good friend of mine, Mike Johnson, really pushed this forward and did so with a lot of adversity and pressure, right? I mean, it's not. You take a lot of flack for standing up for your beliefs, and it's easy to do when everybody agrees with you. But when you're going to take some criticism and heat for it from the community and from the government, obviously, it takes a lot of courage to do that. And he talked a lot with me and others about it. So for me, it's personal in that regard, but it's also personal because the government cannot solve most of any of our social problems we have on the streets. And we need to have robust social service organizations that are private sector, that are religious-based, that are faith-based, that can actually come alongside people because the government is no substitute for faith or family. And we can, and so the more we can rely on faith-based institutions to step in and fill the gap where we can't, the more we should. And by getting this ruling, it takes that chilling effect off of churches and other groups wanting to step into that gap. And so hopefully it will make the legislature and our attorney general think twice before trying to come in and penalize groups that are just there to do good, support, and help people. In this case, this was the Union Gospel Mission, who helps everybody struggling in our valley, regardless of their faith. But they come at it from a belief in our Lord and wanting to do good for his children.
That's amazing. And you get the added bonus of Nick Brown loses. I always like when that happens. We're talking with Representative Chris Corey.
God works in mysterious ways, my friend.
Oh, I completely agree. We're talking with Representative Chris Corey. And just a few minutes ago, you were talking about how it's not easy to do the right thing, especially when a whole lot of people are saying the opposite and a whole lot of people are coming at you, which brings us to the legislative cycle that's coming up. And the Republicans are going to be on defense a lot because the Democrats are going to be pushing their crazy agenda. What are the things you're most concerned about in this legislative cycle?
Well, I think for one, the income tax, right? I think they're couching this as, more class warfare, right? It's only going to be for those millionaires. And 2 points. One, odds are it won't be. And even if it comes out and it is just millionaires today, I like to remind everybody, and we'll continue to remind everybody, when the federal income tax was passed, it was only for those uber wealthy people then. And we're all filling out that W-2, whatever, the 1040, there we go. You're all filling those out every year. Most of us are all paying income tax. So what starts out as only for some will be for everyone, without actually properly addressing our insane, out of control spending. So that's the big one for me. The other thing that's got me concerned, and normally I would say every time they blame Trump, we should do a drinking game, but I'm worried about our health and making it through the first day, because you're going to see a lot of that. They've been in control for 40 years, but somehow our problems have emanated from the last 12 months of the Trump administration. So more of the blame game, more of the can't take, control of our own spending. So those are the two areas I'm concerned about. We've got my colleagues in the Republican House and Senate are going to be doing their best to not only play defense, but offer our solutions and ideas to fix just this out of control government in our state.
I have an idea, and I kind of wanted to run it by a few of you and see what you guys thought. For sure, this is kind of a trap for Brian Haywood and Let's Go Washington. They almost want him to run an initiative to go head-to-head with the income tax thing, because then they could say, oh, the millionaire's mad. I actually have a different idea. I think they are really, really sensitive when we expose the waste, fraud, and abuse. And I think that a marketing campaign that says they want to tax you, not the millionaires, they want to tax you, so they could pay for laser hair removal for trans inmates, so they could pay for self-service stations for guys claiming it's an art gallery, so they could pay for fraud. I think that may actually be the way to go. Do you think that might be an appropriate course of action in this case to defeat this thing? Do you think it might work?
I absolutely think so, right? I mean, everybody around the state is having to tighten their belts, figure out, where they can cut costs. And yet our state has had runaway growth in spending over the last decade that the average Washingtonian hasn't gotten to experience on their own. So I think that's a great way to couch it. This isn't about the millionaires, because this tax will not solve this problem. Even if you kept this tax, our spending is so out of control. We'll be out of balance next year. We'll be out of balance again because they are unwilling to do the things that everyday Washingtonians that like you and I are doing. It is picking and choosing where we're going to spend our money. State's not doing that. And unfortunately, apart from the actual impact on individuals, the chilling impact of future job creation in our state, it scares me, because we already know we're losing about 47 taxpayers per day in this state because of the road we're headed down right now.
Right. And it's only going to get worse, especially some of those taxpayers that own companies that are employers and pay a lot more taxes. Exactly right. Representative Chris Corey from Yakima, thank you so much for joining us today. Really do appreciate it, my friend.
Always a pleasure, sir.
We love having you. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues, including how Kathy Hochul caved and backed Zoran Mamdani. Goodbye, New York State. You had a good run. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. I don't feel so safe in New York City. That Zoran Mamdani guy likes them terrorists. He don't like people like me who wear funny hats that much. Well, a lot of us were saying, Zoran Mamdani, what can he really do? Because the Washington State Legislature isn't going to go along with a lot of the stuff he wants. Well, now Kathy Hochul, who is so desperate to stay in office, she's thinking to herself, if I embrace the socialist, I might actually win. If I embrace the communist, I might actually win. And now with Elise Stefanik out of the race, what's really her competition? What's really her competition? Yeah, the other guy who's running is fine, but he doesn't have the name recognition and the firepower that Elise Stefanik had. I still haven't gotten a good reason why Elise Stefanik dropped out of the race. I hope everything's okay, but unfortunately, New York's not going to be okay. So here's what New York City Mayor Mamdani rolled out today.
Not only when we make pre-K truly universal, but expand this care to include all 2- and 3-year-olds across the city. As the governor said, we will deliver to care by working in partnership with child care providers, especially home-based providers.
The arrogance, the absolute arrogance of this. The guy thinks he's invincible, and in a blue state, you might actually be. Because you literally have home daycare providers under the microscope in states including New York. And he wants more money for that? Now, New York State can spend money on whatever dumb things it wants to spend the money on, but they get federal dollars. And the feds are not going to put up with this insanity. What exactly was Hochul promising today?
Oh, this year we're committing an additional $1.7 billion in what we call recurring spending, something my budget director hates, but meaning we're committed. And so that means our total child care investment this year will be $4.5 billion in the state of New York. So we're in
$4.5 billion. How much of that is fraudulent? How much of that is going to fraudulent causes? And here's something else. New York has a budget crisis from overspending. How do they plan to pay for it? Nothing in this world is free. That means they plan on taxing New Yorkers. Now we know why they wanted all this money for child care. They didn't want it for child care. They wanted to pay off whoever they could pay off to vote for them. How many fraud schemes are there? By the way, I'm not familiar with how big the Somali community is in New York, but you think there aren't other groups who are taking advantage of this fraud because there's no guardrails to a lot of this stuff? I am sure it is happening in other communities as well. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised by this at all. Now, I don't know if you saw this report. Sia Weaver, we've talked about her a few times this week. She's Zoran Mamdani's tenant protection lady. She's the one who said she wants to abolish home ownership and it's white supremacy and all that. And then we found out that her mother has a $1.6 million house in Tennessee. So the privileged white lady wants to abolish your home ownership because of white supremacy. Well, apparently this has been the plan for a long time, but it's even worse than that. Internet sleuths dug up this 2021 podcast where Sia Weaver is there with Zoran Mamdani talking about what their real plan actually is.
So, and, then the follow-up question to that is, what would a socialist housing policy for New York City, one that's presumably replicable in other parts of the country, what would that look like? What would a socialist urbanism look like? And then, from that, we can open up that conversation in the context of the mayor's race in Albany.
Yeah, so what I would do is I would, first of all, you need to expand rent controls to cover smaller buildings. And that needs to happen in Albany, but there's also more that the mayor could do.
Who's being covered now? What kind of buildings are being covered now?
Buildings with 6 or more apartments.
Because in my head, I'm like, I thought already, because I lived in a unit with 8 apartments and it was rent controlled.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And to me, that was already a small building. But you're saying even, like individual, single family homes,
or like
2-family homes. And,
Yeah, like the neighborhoods that Zoran's describing in Queens, like or Bay Ridge. Half of the city's housing stock is in like 4 to 6 unit apartment buildings. that were once affordable homeownership opportunities for immigrants and are now overwhelmingly being bought up by organizations like Blackstone or like whatever, or even like medium-sized slumlords. So rent control, and they need to be rent controlled. And the reason why they need to be rent controlled is not because like rent control is inherently socialist, but because rent control limits the speculative value of the land. Like our goal is to have the housing actually be worthless.
Whoa! Do you know how many people's money for their kids in the future is tied up in their house? Do you know how many people are cash poor but house rich? Do you know how many people rely on that to leverage other properties? Do you know how many people rely on that so they can get loans for other things? Do you know how many small business owners do that? But they want to devalue the land. She didn't just say the quiet part out loud. She said their plan out loud. That's what they want to do. That's what they want to do. And also do it. If they devalue it enough, the government can buy everything. And then guess who you're getting your housing from? Yeah, nothing different here between Seattle and New York. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. Looks like a whole lot more of that fraud is being exposed here in Washington. We'll tell you about what we found when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 5:30 today, newly elected Seattle City Council President Joy Hollingsworth joins us for an exclusive interview about the direction for the city that she envisions. But before we get to any of that, got some breaking news for you right now.
Talk Radio 570 KVI, breaking news on the Ari Hoffman Show.
At the beginning of the show today, I think it was 2 or 3 segments in, I started seeing on social media during commercial breaks something about a shooting with border agents in Portland. And I had a lot of questions because most of the news reports I was seeing did not have a lot of information in them. Basically said, there's a shooting in Portland. Well, now the Department of Homeland Security has released some more information. This is a developing story. We don't know all the details yet. At 2:19 p.m., U.S. Border Patrol agents were conducting a targeted vehicle stop in Portland. The passenger of the vehicle and target is a Venezuelan illegal alien affiliated with the transnational Tren de Aragua prostitution ring and involved in a shooting in Portland. Now, for those of you who don't habla the Espanol, Tren de Aragua, I have no idea what it means. Yeah, I'm just quoting Chris Farley, right?
El Niño, for those of you who don't habla Espanol, El Niño is Spanish for the Niño.
That still gets me. It's been like 20 years since that came out. So, according to DHS, the vehicle is believed to be the driver of the vehicle is believed to be a member of the vicious gang, Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. When agents identified themselves to the vehicle occupants, the driver weaponized his vehicle and attempted to run over the law enforcement agents. Fearing for his life and safety, an agent fired a defensive shot. The driver drove off with the passenger, fleeing the scene. They are not in custody yet. Now, Mike, why isn't there a whole bunch of video camera footage about this? Oh, because the activists didn't know this was going on and weren't there, like in Minnesota. Here's something else, by the way. Let's assume everything is verbatim exactly as the Department of Homeland Security says. Let's take their word for a second that everything is exactly right. This explains a lot more about Minnesota. Anytime a cop approaches a vehicle, they have no idea who is behind the wheel, ever. They have to assume the most dangerous criminal in the world is behind the wheel of that vehicle. Even worse when you're doing a raid and you're going after a gang member. I've told this story before. I'm going to tell it again just to illustrate the issue that police are dealing with. I got pulled over in 2020, and I had my gun in my center console of my car because it was uncomfortable to drive with it on my hip. So I had my gun in my center console. I got pulled over for, I don't remember what it was, speeding or whatever, California roll, whatever. And the officer comes over to the car and she says, "Can I see your license and registration, please?" I said, "Yes, officer, but there is a firearm on top of my license and registration. What do you want me to do about it?" Because I know that if you open a thing up and there's a gun right there, they may think I'm reaching for a gun. So the officer says, "Follow my directions exactly as I say them." And I said, "Okay, no problem." My heart's going a little bit, by the way, at this point. And she says, "Are you right-handed or left-handed?" I said, "I'm right-handed." She goes, "Great. Keep your right hand on the steering wheel. Take your left hand and open the center console." Now, you now realize I'm like cross-armed, right? And I go, "I'm not sure I can reach the center console." I don't remember if she said that's the point, but then I realized that's the point, right? So I open the center console. She goes, "I see the firearm. Now, I want you to go under it and pull out the papers. Do not touch the firearm." This was a whole to-do, by the way. Very uncomfortable, by the way. The whole time she had her hand on her gun, by the way. I pull out the papers. She goes, "Hand them to me." hand them to her. She goes, now still using your left hand, close the center console. Done. She goes, okay, keep your hands on the wheel. I'm going back to my squad car to check out all this. Hey, I'm still alive. What do you know? Because I complied with the police officer's orders.
That reminds me, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine very recently who has their registration and insurance. Their glove box is too full, so they've moved it to like a pouch behind their seat, and it's like in a leather zipper pouch.
Oh,
and
no.
Exactly. So I was saying, it's like, well, you got a couple choices here, buddy. You could reorganize your glove box.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but it's still in the leather pouch. It's like that's what the car has. That has like the instruction book and all that other stuff. I was like, well, my recommendation, if something happens, is you keep your hands visible on the steering wheel at all times and ask questions. You know, you say like, guide me specifically what you want me to do.
Yes.
Don't assume anything. That's where tragedy can happen.
Every time.
Every time. Ask for instructions.
Exactly. Just follow what the police tell you to do. You know another funny gun story? So, you know the case we use to carry our portable broadcast equipment, the Tylo?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
yeah,
so
very much so.
For those of you who don't know what this is, it's a portable board that has knobs and dials, and you plug your headphones into it, and it sends a studio back to the office through Wi-Fi. Back to the studio. It's a portable television studio. No wonder your president has to look good on TV. So it's a portable radio studio. It comes in a hard case. Every single time I go to the airport, I get asked multiple times if it's a firearm. And they always want to know why I refuse to check it, because I don't trust that really expensive piece of equipment being checked. So I carry that sucker with me everywhere. So let's go over the amount of times I've been asked to open this thing in one trip. Okay. Ticket counter. Sir, is that a firearm? No, it's not. Can you show it to me? Sure. Oh, cool. Okay, close it back up. TSA. Sir, is that a firearm? No, it's a portable radio station. Oh, can you show it to me? I always get pulled out of line. Then I get to the gate. Sir, is that a firearm? No, it's a portable radio station. Oh, can you show it to me? The amount of times I get stopped because I'm so paranoid about something happening to this thing and checked baggage that I carry it with me. That's what I do. But guess what? People want to go home safe. People want to go home alive. Now, immediately when the story broke, what did I start seeing on social media? All we knew was that there was a shooting in Portland involving ICE. Now, you know that Twitter has two tabs at the top, for those of you who don't do the social media? It's got two tabs. One of them says, for you, and one of them says, following. Now, this is very deceiving, Elon Musk, and even though you commented on one of my posts today, this is still not great. The for you section is everybody you want to fight with that it thinks you might be interested in. The following section is everybody you follow whose opinions you're actually interested in. So I clicked over to the for you section, and what do you know? Every single post is, we have to shut down ICE. We have to stop Donald Trump. Did they kill another mother? What did they do now? Every single one. It's a gang member. It's a gang member, according to DHS. So my question really here is, once again, is that how much about the incident in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, do we not know? We have discussed this issue a lot, but as we said in the beginning of the show, we got a whole lot more new facts today. One, why were there activists filming this? Why were there activists screaming in the video? How'd they know where ICE was going to be? How'd they know where this car was going to be? Well, that woman was an activist, and her wife was filming her. What's her wife doing out of the car? They were trying to provoke a reaction, and they got one. I'm not saying the woman deserved to die, but they went there looking for a fight. The ICE agent had previously been dragged by somebody else who hit him with a car a few months ago. The woman, who's the wife of the woman who was killed was caught on video going, "It's all my fault. It's all my fault. I sent her. It's all my fault." Guys, this was an avoidable tragedy. Now I'm going to say something really, really controversial. And if you want to call or yell at me, I'm going to give you the phone number now, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. On January 6th, the Democrats walked down the steps of the Capitol. And what they do when they walk down the steps of the Capitol, they were kind of walking the way they did when they delivered the Trump impeachment, when they did the walking across the Capitol to the other side, which is all performative nonsense. This was performative nonsense. They're carrying candles and little paper cups. It looks like Mr. Miyagi's father's funeral in Karate Kid 2. Right. Who's the person who died on January 6th? Ashley Babbitt. So, wait a minute. Everybody here knows I'm not the biggest Ashley Babbitt fan for a second here. But are you mourning Ashley Babbitt? And wait a second. Ashley Babbitt got killed by an officer who opened fire on her. So you're not mad about Ashley Babbitt, but you're mad about the gal down in Minnesota. Are you seeing a little bit of the hypocrisy here? Now, just to call balls and strikes, and this is where it's going to tick everybody off. I say, and you are welcome to call me and yell at me at 206-421-5757 or text me. Ashley Babbitt didn't have to put herself in that situation either. We've looked at that video numerous times where they are literally shattering that door, climbing through that door. She did not have to put her in that situation either. She didn't need to die either, but she put herself in that position. And every time I bring this up, a lot of you call and get mad at me, but let's call balls and strikes here. If you're going to compare it from one angle, compare it from the other angle as well. Both were avoidable tragedies. Absolutely avoidable tragedies. But it's fascinating who the Democrats choose to idolize. Mike, you know what's going to happen next? Let's say they find the Tren de Aragua members. Let's say they find them. He was a father who had children. Oh, he had children. The drug dealer of the vicious gang had children. Oh, we need to help him. Oh, we need, just watch. I mean, come on. They defended Maduro, didn't they? They were defending Maduro. Why wouldn't they be defending Tren de Aragua? They were defending Hamas. Why wouldn't they be defending Tren de Aragua? Of course they would be. Of course they would be. Well, now, speaking of Venezuela, by the way, Marco Rubio, I don't know how many jobs the guy can take. Are they going to put him in charge of Venezuela? Sounds like they're putting him in charge of Venezuela next. I don't know how the guy's not exhausted. In fact, every time he speaks, he kind of sounds perpetually exhausted given the amount of jobs he has. Well, now we're talking about what are we doing with all that oil out of Venezuela? Marco Rubio was talking about this yesterday.
The oil arrangement that we've made with PDVSA on their sanctioned oil that they can't move. Understand, they are not generating any revenue from their oil right now. They can't move it unless we allow it to move because we have sanctions, because we're enforcing those sanctions. This is tremendous leverage. We are exercising it in a positive way. The president described it last night. Secretary Wright will have more to say on it today, who is involved in running this portfolio. And we feel very positive that not only will that generate revenue that will be used to the benefit of the Venezuelan people, and we're ensured that that's what the case is, but it also gives us an amount of leverage and influence and control over how this process moves forward.
Exactly right. You've cut off their lifeline. And we can also fill up the U.S. oil reserves that way. Hey, Donald Trump said he would do it a lot cheaper than Joe Biden. Hey, if you confiscate all of it, you can do it. The key is that when they nationalized the oil, there was really no profit in it anymore for a lot of companies. Chevron still had to deal with them. Trump says he's going to honor the deal with Chevron. But now if we're in control of the oil there, one, it's going to be cheaper in the world market because the largest supply of oil is in Venezuela. Now you can open that up to go everywhere else in the world. You've cut off China, who is buying it from them. You've cut off commerce between them and Iran. Do you realize how you're taking out the bad guys by cutting their energy at the same time, making things cheaper for us? You want to worry about the day after? I agree with you. What are we going to do with Venezuela? Their vice president, she's just as bad as Maduro. I completely agree. Are we going to have free and fair elections when Maduro's cronies still control the place? What is Marco Rubio literally going to move into the palace down there in Caracas and be in charge of the place? I have concerns. I do. But Maduro being out of the picture, that is a net positive. You want to disagree, you want to weigh in, you give me a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Wolf in Spanaway. Wolf, what's going on?
Well, you were just talking a few minutes ago about the woman in Minnesota that got shot by ICE.
Yeah.
And I heard somebody mention yesterday, and no one else is saying anything about her having Missouri license plates on her car.
Okay, so here's the point of confusion. And I haven't fully finished investigating this, and let me tell you why. If you zoom in, it looks like those are Missouri plates. That was us who were talking about it yesterday. On her car, it also looks like she has Kansas City and other stickers on the back of her car. Now, that may just be places she's traveled to. But all the media outlets are saying she was a member of the community because people of the community are people of the community. I also saw she moved to Minneapolis recently. I don't know what any of this actually means, so I've got some questions out to some law enforcement authorities because how do we know she didn't just come there for the protests, as was my original theory, right?
Yeah.
Right. That's the confusion I have right here.
She probably did. You know, she could easily have just moved there the day before yesterday, you know, when they say she moved there recently.
Yeah, exactly right. That's what I think. That's exactly what I think. I think that this is all pre-planned. I think not her dying, of course, but I think they want to antagonize ICE. I think what happens is whenever they put up the bat signal for protesters, they all come a-flocking, like we saw yesterday. Mike, what did we see yesterday? I didn't drive by the lunatics outside the federal courthouse, but 300-400 protesters show up just at a moment's notice. Hey, we can show up. Hey, I guess Starbucks closed early last night or something, right? The Ventifada is over in front of the Starbucks corporate headquarters. Yeah, I mean, come on, guys, really? Yeah, absolutely crazy, crazy stuff. Wolf, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, more of your texts, more of your calls, plus also more of the fraud here in Washington. We'll tell you the latest that's been revealed and what's being done about it when we come back. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast, right now on the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Make sure you never miss a minute of the show by downloading the KVI app and subscribing on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Looks like a lot of you want to weigh in, so we go right to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Terry in Parkland. Terry, what's going on?
Hey, Ari. I just want to talk about when you were comparing Babbitt with the woman that got shot in Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you with all points except for one. You were comparing, they both put themselves in that, but one was trying to run over an ICE agent and one was just trying to break down a door and was shot.
Okay.
So
all right. Hang on a second here. Hang on a second. What was the building you're trying to break down the door of?
Well, you're not trying to kill an officer.
Okay, but you don't know what the plan is for an unruly mob that's trying to come in. Look, we've discussed this many times, Terry, and I appreciate that we can have a nuanced discussion about this. One side of the building, grandmas were being let in as if they were on a tour, and those people were prosecuted, and they shouldn't have been prosecuted. On the other side of the building, there's a full-blown riot. There's a full-blown riot going on, and you're trying to break down the doors of a government building. Let me ask you this, Terry. The people in Portland who protested for 120 days against the ICE facility, if they had tried to break down the door of the ICE facility, do you think they deserve to get shot?
Well, yeah, that's a law enforcement place.
Okay. All right, let's try this a little different here. Let's do this a little different. The ones who were trying to break down the doors of the federal courthouse in 2020 for 120 consecutive nights, do you think they would have deserved to get shot?
Absolutely.
So what's the difference between that and the U.S. Capitol?
Well, they make laws there, and that's kind of the people's house. Courthouse isn't really the people's house.
So wait a second. We're allowed to break down the doors of the people's house?
Well, we're not allowed to do it, but I guess what my point is that she was not the only one there. Why was she the only one that got shot and killed?
Well, because from my vantage in the video, she was the first one in. And if you're outnumbered, you set an example so nobody else does it. Now, I'm not saying she deserved to die. I'm going to say this again. I'm not saying she deserved to die because otherwise I'm going to get all these angry phone calls, right? I'm not saying she deserved to die, but once again, she was in a situation she shouldn't have been in, doing something she should have been doing. And if we want to compare what happened to Ashley Babbitt to the gal in Minnesota, where the left is mad about one and ignoring the other, or treating one as a hero, one as a martyr, and the other one as a criminal, we have to call balls and strikes on all of it. Terry, appreciate the call, appreciate the intellectual exercise. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Now, as we discussed earlier in the show, there's a lot of allegations of fraud here in Washington. Now, Representative Congressman Michael Baumgartner announced today that he wants HHS and the Agriculture Department to do a full investigation of federal funds that are going to Washington to make sure there are guidelines about what they're doing and to make sure there are guardrails to keep the fraud from happening and to make sure there's no fraud. Now, mind you, this is a very reasonable request. He didn't ask for them to investigate fraud. He didn't ask for them to arrest anybody. He didn't ask for them to go into the Somalian community. What's his community? Agriculture, Eastern Washington. He said, I am concerned about my constituents. Can we make sure there are guardrails in place and there is no fraud going on? I think that's a very, very reasonable request. And as I keep saying, for Nick Brown and Katie Wilson and Emily Randall and anybody else who refuses to investigate the fraud, why are you so determined to say there's no fraud? If you want to shut me up, all you have to do is say, we investigated it and there's no fraud. We did what you wanted us to do and there's no fraud. Just like Secretary of State Steve Hobbs. When the Department of Justice says we want to see your voter rolls and you say no, they want to know what you're hiding, right? You could turn it over to them and they could say, yep, Washington's doing everything right. And then Steve Hobbs can go out and go, ha ha, Hoffman, you were wrong the whole time. Everybody on the right, you were all wrong. What are you hiding? So when socialist Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson gets asked what she's going to do about the fraud, her answer was very revealing.
What have you done in those regards?
Yeah, so we're working on that. So we have conversations going on with the departments. And yeah, it's just, I don't think it needs to be explained why it's problematic to have random people showing up to daycares. I think the fear in the Somali community is real. The fear in immigrant communities are real. So we're taking that very seriously.
Along those lines, have you asked anyone to follow up on the fraud claims, either to the Department of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs or SPD?
No.
So there's, as far as you're concerned right now, there's no reason to suggest there's any sort of fraud?
This whole issue is not really about fraud, right? It's about dividing and conquering. It's about making an immigrant community a target, right? There's no reason to assume based on the identity of a daycare operator that their small business is doing anything wrong.
I'm not assuming based on the identity. In fact, I haven't looked up the identities of the people who run these daycares. I look up how much government funding they're getting and why you're getting $100,000 for 2 kids. Why you're getting $1 million when there's nobody actually at the daycare and your front yard looks completely overgrown. I'm wondering why these houses are getting so much money. And I'm kind of wondering, hey, I got kids. They had to go to daycare before they were older. Where's the money I was supposed to get? How come other people got this money? I pay taxes. What happened to that money? Now, hers is the worst answer. Emily Randall was more deflect, and blame the white man.
We can trot out all of the data that we want to create the sense that there is a bad guy. There is a bad group of people. There are folks who are not among us. There are folks who are other. And I think we should spend a lot more time looking at ourselves, looking at American citizens, looking at white men.
Yep, that's it. Come after us. That's what we got to be looking into, the white man. The white man did the thing wrong. Emily, I hate to break this to you. You know you're white, right? Do you identify another way or something? I'm just putting this out there for a second. You're a U.S. citizen, too. Otherwise, you wouldn't be a member of Congress. What is this nonsense? She's deflecting. Katie Wilson's just refusing. And then there's Nick Brown, right? Nick Brown is the one who says every single one of us, or every one of us who is investigating this, the independent journalists, we're just harassment. We're just a bunch of racists, right?
But I was really concerned was about the level of harassment, sort of random vigilante people just showing up on people's doorsteps. Like, that would make all of us scared. And some of the rhetoric around it, frankly, is racist, and sort of the hate that we've seen generated around that, and that's an area of concern for me as well. And so I think we need to investigate things that are happening. We need to hold people accountable. We need to also tamper down some of these harassing allegations and see if that's something that we need to look into as well.
Yeah, we're all a bunch of vigilantes. We're all a bunch of racists. We're just harassing random people. Too bad there's a little problem. There's an audit going on of DCYF right now. That's the agency that gives out the money to these daycares, the Department of Children, Youth, and Family Services. And they already found that there's possibly $2 million of money that was fraudulently obtained through improper payments and other ways. The Department of Community and Human Services also, according to an audit by the King County Auditor's Office, needs to strengthen its financial stewardship because they were having problems. If there's no fraud, how come there's fraud? If there's no fraud, how come there's fraud? And this isn't me saying it. This is the Washington State Auditor. This is the King County Auditor. Definitely not people in my little black book of the right-wing media or the right wing at all. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. When we come back, our exclusive interview with the brand newly minted City Council President, Joy Hollingsworth for Seattle. We'll hear what her plans are when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. My friends, a lot of people reach out to me from around the country and they go, Ari, Seattle is doomed. You got this kind of mayor, you got this kind of city attorney, you got this kind of police chief. And I said, no, my friends, there is one ray of sunshine, And her name is Joy Hollingsworth, and she just got elected to become the Seattle City Council president. And she joins us now on the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Council President Hollingsworth, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Ari. Thank you for having me. And those kind words. Thank you.
Oh, I mean every single word of it. You saved a dog. You literally saved a dog in front of all of Seattle, and no political official ever goes to that kind of trouble. But you're also somebody we can always talk to. So lay out your vision for the city for us. There's so many problems I don't know where to begin. And also a lot of people get confused about what's in whose jurisdiction. So what is your vision for the city?
Yeah, well, let me first start off. I'm so grateful for my colleagues for electing me to this position. Their vote of confidence is incredible, and I'm very grateful for that. The second piece is, as a governing body, we're going to be focused on the basics. And my next question to you, I'm going to ask you, what are your basics that you want for the city to deliver on? Like, what are your simple basics? And that's my question. What are your basics?
I love this. This is great. This is the best interview I've ever done. So I'll tell you, my basics are basically the roads, emergency services. Those are all big things. Is the place safe? And am I going to be regulated out of my own house or taxed out of my own house? The utilities, are they going to be running? Those are my basics. That is all I'm really looking for.
That's what, as a governing body, that is what we have been elected to do as a body, right? To focus on those basics: the water, the sewer, the garbage, the electricity, your rates, the cleanliness of parks, how long the police are responding to you, emergency. Those are the basics as a governing body. Individually, there are different ideas, there are different goals that individual council members have, but those are the basics that we're going to be focusing on, where we can find commonality no matter how far the political spectrum is with each other.
That's just so refreshing to hear. I think you should just call it the Back to Basics tour, and I think you got something there. We just focus on that. So we've seen a lot of attempted experiments, and experimentation is fine as long as somebody's willing to say, hey, this worked and this didn't. So we look at the billions of dollars we've invested in the homeless industrial complex, and the problem's only gotten worse. Are we talking about maybe starting with an audit of something like that right off the get-go to go, are we using the funds appropriately?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple things here. We have invested a lot of money, and I think people want to see impact. They want to see people moved off the street. They want to see people get inside. They want to see people getting help. We're a progressive city. Those are terms that people like to use. I always say progressive city. Let's get progressive outcomes. What does that look like? And so does it start with the audit? Does it start with, looking into how that measurable impact? There are different ways that are going to come. I think we're going to see a lot more of questions asked this year regarding how we're spending money and is it impacting folks, and not shifting from our values of Seattleites, but also, saying, hey, do we need to change the strategy a little bit? Do we need to shift things a little bit? Do we need to make sure that when we are spending this amount of money on a certain piece, that we can get people inside and housed and service right onto a good path of life?
We're talking with Council President of the Seattle City Council, Joy Hollingsworth. I'm just thrilled to be having this conversation because I consider you a friend I can talk to even when we disagree about this kind of stuff. We're always put together at fundraising dinners at the same table because they always put the political people together. It's kind of entertaining. So that's the homeless situation. There was a brouhaha last week / this week about what the Seattle police are going to be doing and not going to be doing. That's not really in the city council's wheelhouse. You guys fund them. But everything that's been happening, I don't want to drag you into the middle of this with the mayor, with the city attorney, with the police chief. But we've seen that this non-enforcement of drug laws ends badly. Is there something that the Seattle City Council is looking at doing something differently regarding the open drug use on the street?
Okay, so from my perspective, this is personally me not speaking as a council president, but a council member. In my opinion, I have always stood firm on how we should align with state law. I don't think people should be able to smoke fentanyl out in the open with people, or whether it's on buses and parks or in schools. And I think what we saw and what we're going to continue to enforce, from my perspective, and I know a lot of other council members align with this, is that we want people to get help. So whether it's treatment, whether some people it's diversion, or some folks, they're going to have to, be held accountable. Is that jail? Is that whatever it is? There are different pathways to this to get the same outcome, which is we do not want people that are on the street disorder, fentanyl, that piece, and we're going to have difference of opinion, but I think for the outcomes, we don't want people on the street.
We're talking with Seattle City Council President Joy Hollingsworth. And a term that's been thrown around a lot is affordability. And what it comes down to is really the amount of taxes that are placed on so many things, be it from the state, be it from the city, make things less affordable. I mean, my property taxes are absolutely insane from when I first moved here, and it makes things less affordable in the city. We have a massive budget problem in the city, and one of the reasons I asked about the audit at the beginning of this is because we want to make sure we're being good stewards for the money before we talk about additional revenue streams, to borrow that term. So what is the council looking at right now regarding affordability and revenue?
Yeah, so let's talk about, it is hard to live in Seattle, number one. You said it, our property taxes are going up. If you're a renter, it's very difficult to find an apartment, and your, 2-bedroom house, $2,500, even $3,000 in some apartment. Your water's going up, your sewer's going up. These are things that are affordability, and some of those things we do not have jurisdiction over or we cannot control. But what we do have control over are the property taxes, and that's county as well, but what the city votes on for levies, how that raises your property taxes. We also have jurisdiction over your livability, so the amount of money that you pay as a resident. Is your trash overflowing, right? Is your sidewalk broken? Can you go to the park and it be clean and accessible? Is your bus running on time? Are you sitting in traffic? Those are things that we can control as a government, and those all affect your day-to-day lives. And so as we are thinking about how we are creating a livable city, I think we start with the basics, the cleanliness of it. A bathroom your bathroom, available open, so when your kid is playing softball, you can go use the bathroom, and finish watching that and not having to run to the store or hold your pee until you get home. Like, these are things that are just simple, basic things that when I travel to a city, I often examine as well how livable that city is. And so those are things that we're going to focus on as well.
That's so refreshing to hear. It really, really is. In the last few minutes.
You agree with me, Ari? Because I'm gonna tell you, there's a lot of things you tweet, and I'm like, bro, I don't message you, but I be hot at you. Okay.
Look,
I be hot at you.
I know everybody gets mad at me for various things. I always reach out before anybody, before we flame anybody. But I'll say is that really, I'm so happy you're the president. Actually, I'll throw out an idea here for you. We have a 30% office vacancy rate here in Seattle because so many businesses have left and so many people are working remotely. Has there been any thought to talking about landlords, some kind of partnership deal where you convert that kind of stuff into more housing options, maybe in lieu, maybe you give tax breaks, tax incentives? Is that something that's being discussed?
Yeah, we've talked about that. I think we passed a bill last year from the executive that talked about making it easier to convert office space into housing. Also reimagining downtown, the old, the Macy's, the Bon Marchés, those pieces, those anchor stores. Downtown's shifting a little bit. So are there activities? Is it arts? Is it culture? But the baseline of that, basics, is it clean? Is it safe? Do you see an officer walking around? Do you see a mental health, like a social provider that could be there, directing someone to resources? Is the lighting right? What type of activity are we having downtown? And I think that's really going to shift a little bit as we're reimagining what downtown looks like. But I do know that we need to add housing, but we also need to make it livable for folks. The grocery stores, the daycares, the outdoor spaces, green spaces, those are all going to be an addition to getting people downtown and to live downtown as well.
And just before we let you go, a lot of people are worried about businesses fleeing the area. It seems like every single week there's another retailer that's leaving. There's talk about whether the big companies that are, corporate giants are going to be leaving the area. What can you do as council president to try and get them to stay?
Yeah, we can encourage a couple things. I would love more public-private partnerships. I think Seattle has not leveraged that. We are in a city that has a ton of companies that have a worldwide reach. Okay, from Amazon, you have Starbucks, you have Boeing. I mean, Boeing's, their footprint is here. Costco, Microsoft. I can go down the line of worldwide companies that have chosen the Seattle and Seattle region as their home. More public-private partnerships. If my outcome is to get housing or I want to fund this park, you don't always need to tax folks. If I can tell a business to say, hey, I need this as a park for these kids. What can you do to help me get there? Maybe it's that public-private partnership that will get us there. You can still get the same outcomes. Maybe I don't need to tax them, so it's cumbersome in government. Maybe sometimes some people said it is taxation. Who knows? But I want to open up all conversation and channels to figure out what are the outcomes and how can we best get there for the least amount of impact, the greatest amount of where we don't have to overburden people as well.
Council President Joy Hollingsworth, it's such a pleasure. I'm so happy you are in that job. I cannot think of anybody better suited for it. I wish you only success in this, and thank you so much for joining us today. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Ari. I appreciate the time and looking forward to connecting with you again.
Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You'll listen to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And I just got an interesting request from my friends over at Fox News. They asked if I could be on standby tonight in case there's any insanity going on down in Portland. And I said, what does standby entail? And they go, well, if there's riots, we just want to call you and get you to weigh in on them and stuff. So I don't know if I'm pulling an all-nighter or waiting for that phone to ring tonight. But if you're up in the middle of the night tonight, check out Fox and Friends. See if you see me there. If you're not up that early/late, we'll play the clip for you tomorrow on the show. This story here Mike found from Come On News. The halls of a high school aren't always known for their kindness. But at North Kitsap High School, students Cohen and Dax are willing to pull on their tutus and make other students smile. The boys dressed up as elves, delivering gifts in the school's Winter Wishes campaign. Each year, the Winter Wishes, every student can ask for a gift. Student Cooper Rayer explained, a lot of people ask for a Monster, an energy drink, or a bag of chips. Starbucks gift cards, Stanley's, and candies, Kelsey Valley added. They can also make wishes for someone else. 14-year-old freshman Marquet Reed didn't make a wish, but his friend Oliver did, and surprised the students running the campaign. Quote, you look at it, and you're like a prosthetic arm, said Rare. I literally teared up, said Valet. Kina Sela said, when we found out, we were like, oh, we need to get this kid what he wants. Marquet, who was born with just a portion of his left arm, found humor in the wish for a prosthetic arm. When it first got brought up, I just thought it was a funny idea, he said. And then it got out of proportion. Jared Prince is the teacher who oversees Winter Wishes. He heard about this particular wish from a colleague. The teacher asked. She said, Marquez, do you want this to happen? He said, absolutely. So she said, does anybody want to donate to the cause to get Marquez an arm this year? And students just started pulling out their money. When Marquez's mother, Nicole Reed, heard about the campaign, she was touched by the generosity, but she also cautioned Marquez. I told him not to get his hopes up too much because it's a pretty big wish. So I didn't want anybody to be let down or anything, but after the first 2 weeks, I was like, oh, this might really go somewhere. By the end of the day, they had $300. By the end of the month, they had $6,000, and the total kept growing. Quote, it's been exciting to watch, and then very exciting what's been kid-led, said Marquez's mother, Nicole Reed. His sense of humor is very good about it and hasn't really held him back, but it will be nice to see how much further he can go with having a little extra help. Marquez is taking all the attention in stride. He said, I feel touched that my friend's first thought was to get me an arm, Marquez said, but mostly I find it funny. That was the first thought, to get me an arm. While students donated much of the money, the community in Poulsbo has also rallied around Marquez. The family is now waiting to find out how much insurance will cover and what sort of prosthesis they'll be able to afford. This is much better than Rocket Raccoon. I need that guy's arm. This is way better than that, but still a very nice story about that, about giving. I remember when I was in high school, we had these auctions. I went to a very wealthy, shall we say, Upper East Side high school. And whenever they would do these fundraisers, I was always blown away by the amount of money they would bring in, because kids were really generous with their parents' money. It was really nice. There was this one thing, I don't think you could do this anymore. It was literally called a slave auction. Yeah, that's literally what it was, where they would say, okay, you're this person's slave for the day, where they could buy a senior, buy a junior, buy a whoever to follow you around for the day. I think certain things are no longer allowed in our oh-so PC society. Yeah, I can't believe we literally had a thing called a slave auction. That's literally what it was, right? Oh, it's literally what it meant was like a senior girl would go on a date with a freshman boy or whatever it was. Oh, the money went to a good cause. It's okay, right? It's okay to have something called a slave auction if it all went to a good cause, right? That's perfectly fine. Holy cow. The things we didn't give a second thought about to what they were called back in the day. I remember as a senior, they auctioned off hanging out with me and my Camaro. That's right, my totally bitchin' Camaro. That's right. That was one of the things that they auctioned off. Yeah, lots of fun stuff. Oh, the things we don't do anymore. Well, anyway, my friends, that's going to wrap it up for us today. But remember is that if I am on Fox and Friends today, I'll let you know what time that'll be, so that way you can tune in and see it. If not, we'll play it for you here on the show tomorrow. But we got a whole lot more to discuss tomorrow with more insane stories. Will there be riots in Portland or Seattle tonight? Who knows? More exciting guests to weigh in on all this. You've been listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.